What is relevant in learning and in education? How do we bring those durable skills in and professional learning, right? How do we attach the academic and the professional world together, which has been so separated for so many years?
I'm not saying that the AP model and a test is bad. It's not the only way. And that's where I think bringing teamship into College Board, into AP classes, into high school is what we should be talking about.
Now, I think you're going to hear a lot more young people say, hey, you know what? My voice does matter. I did try this. A lot of kids don't get to prove that value until after high school.
This is a huge signal for everybody in education that it can be right now.
You're listening to the Disrupt Education podcast, powered by U Science. Here are your hosts, Peter Hostrawser and Alli Dahl.
Welcome back to the Disrupt Education podcast. I'm Peter Hostrawser. That is Alli Dahl. What's up, Alli? How are you?
I am good. We're in fake spring right now. But by the time this comes out, it'll be real spring, hopefully. There's nothing better than like where I live in Minnesota, it's quite cloudy in the wintertime and most days are like gray. And so when you get like that first burst of like sunshine, like blue skies, and I'm a skydiver, so it's like I love the blue skies even more, maybe more than most people, because I just like dream about like jumping out of them. There's like a pep in your step, and even my chickens who if you listen to the podcast with any kind of regularity, you know, and have seen at this point, one of my chickens, they've got an extra pep in their step. There's still snow on the ground at the time of this recording, but it's like melting and you can just feel like there's a new energy and a new wave in the air. And I will say that's also true for what happened on the podcast last week.
Yes. Coming to life. I like that term. I think it's a Pink Floyd song too, if I remember. Yeah, I just went kind of way over there into the 70s. Actually, I think it was on their 90s album, The Division Bell. I know too much about Pink Floyd. Sorry, people. But yeah, that shift is in not only in the weather. Our guest last week was Dan Gonzalez and Alyssa Chudnovsky. And I can't. The College Board absorbing teamship in District C, team-based challenges, working with companies and business, skill sets, durable skills, all with College Board. It's out there.
That's the crazy part, right? Is that I know, because after we recorded last week's episode, I like definitely texted some of my friends and I was like, you know, if I told you College Board was, you know, doing XYZ, what would you say? And the response is definitely like, wait, I thought College Board was pretty traditional. Like they do testing, they do the SAT, they do the PSAT, they do AP tests, they do club tests. Like I didn't know, and like you didn't know, you actually didn't know longer than I didn't know that they are jumping into CTE. They're doing AP Career Kickstart, and their name is College Board. And so it's like, if you aren't paying attention, you would miss it. You'd be like, what? Like this is a huge signal and turning point in education. If College Board is entering like gangbusters into the CTE space, like they have big plans that we started learning about on the podcast last week. So if you haven't listened to that episode, you're going to want to. And I think we're still reeling from the fact that like we had Dan Gonzalez on the podcast back when he was the CEO of District C in 2024 to now he's works for the College Board, and District C is now teamship underneath the College Board. And we're like, whoa, like it's just, we aren't the only people that are going to be leaning into this podcast. Like, what is happening in education? Is this exciting?
I mean, I ended off the podcast with I never thought that I would ever see anything like this in at least my tenure in education and as a business educator, a CTE educator, work-based learning educator. People are still going to have a lot of emotions about this. There's a lot of things that people either agree with or don't agree with, both ways. But I think by the end of this whole recap and how we're talking about last week's podcast, I think people are going to start to understand why it matters. Like you said, you're throwing that it's a signal. It's there's so many quotes that we're going to pull from the last episode and topics of, again, I can't believe I heard somebody from College Board saying these things. Actually, I
Hmm.
mean, it's not like, oh, I can't believe it. It's like, I can't believe it. This is awesome.
Yeah.
And so I think, when you take, I've always said the dinosaurs will get eaten by the unicorns, right? But what happens if the dinosaurs and the unicorns pair up, they team up? And I think that's what's happening here, and it's really interesting. Like I said, like you said, I had no idea about this career kickstart. They're mentioning credentials in this. And Alyssa said a couple of things that even like that Jason Van Nuss has said several times on our podcast, whether it was in the U Science series or before or around his individual series, is that it always has been college and career. It's never
Mhm.
either or. And I want to start there with that narrative because it used to be those kids over there and these kids over here, and it was divisive. We can even see it at the post-secondary level now, where universities are what they have to move. I mean, they have to
Mhm.
change the way that they're doing things. And some of them are going to do it super slow. And then you're going to have great competitors like Pegasus who are going to come in and really understand how to move fast, be agile, bring in AI. So I think that's the top of this whole recap is really, what is relevant in learning and in education. How do we bring those durable skills in and professional learning, right? How do we attach the academic and the professional world together, which has been
Mhm.
so separated for so many years? So,
Mhm.
yeah.
I mean, I admitted it on the episode. Like when I think of College Board, I don't think like the most innovative, the most disruptive in education. And I not only when for the episode was I forced to kind of like update my assumptions, and but that actually started back in December of 2025 at the Vision Conference when I met Alyssa in person. And I mean, so when you go to an educational conference, and this would be true at any one, it wouldn't necessarily be a CTE focused conference. There is usually an expo floor where vendors are like, talking to people and selling their product, but just also just being around to, I mean, like these are the people who would potentially buy your product. It makes sense. And so when I was there and I was looking at what they had on their table, that when I saw CTE and then career kickstart, and it was like cybersecurity and personal finance and AP business and stuff, I was like, wow, these were not around when I was in school, only to find out like they have they are new and some of them are launching this year in 2026. So it's like if you're not behind the ball, if you also feel that way, because they are ramping up those things. And Alyssa said on the podcast, which I loved, is that they have a lot of feedback, and they said like, oh, when they ask students what they want to major in, they say business,
Yeah.
even though they've taken like AP World, AP Bio, AP Chem, AP Calculus, AP Music Theory, like whatever, AP Economics. But the majority of them have not ever taken a business class. I would be one of those kids. Now, I didn't
Hmm.
want to major in business, but the fact is that uh, that's that is a missing piece in many high schoolers' uh, education in 9 through 12. I see is a huge lacking piece that can be easily remedied by having more like what AP is doing, like they're bringing light to this, they're making new courses around it. But just as a signal to high schoolers, like if AP and College Board is saying, this is the data, this is what students are saying, and they, just so you guys know, College Board programs reach more than 7 million students globally per year. So that's a huge number of students that they have and they collect surveys and data from. So if the students are saying that, and these are students taking AP level, college level classes in high school, then to me, that is a clear signal to high schoolers and administrators and district leaders and community partners. Let's get more business related classes and programs. I don't know, like Teamship and other ones in the schools. So I'm thrilled for Dan Gonzalez. Okay, right. We've had him on the podcast before when he
Hmm.
was CEO of District C. Now he in his teamship model is now under College Board, which is
Hmm.
so awesome because Dan said this. He's so passionate about teamship and the urgency that he's felt.
Hmm.
And so to be able to partner with someone like College Board that reaches 7 million students, he's going to have the ability to scale Teamship, which is an awesome flagship program to get students working on teams, solving real world problems, this messy, like real world value driven process into the hands of more students because of that partnership. And I couldn't be more excited about that.
I mean, I did say bringing the Yankees in, and I apologize, Alyssa. She's a Red Sox fan, so that's a whole like, whoops. So we'll just say it's like bringing the Red Sox in. But yeah, I mean, you love them or hate them, but the resources and the scale are real. I mean, that kind of came out of that, the prophetic quote that you called out with Dan. He really, his dream was to get this into every school. I want to talk about real quick the flip side of that as well. I think that's exciting in one thing that we're struggling with at our internship program is, yeah, we're doing great with smaller businesses and maybe medium-sized businesses. But I know that College Board has the power to start helping corporations, bigger
Mm,
corporations, realize the value that a younger student not in college yet can bring and
mm,
help build whatever their products or services are within their organizations and bring real value. I like that as well because that has been a huge blocker for the people who are working a little bit on the head of this when you're working with internships and a lot of I guess legacy companies will still look at the internship, especially at the high school level, as a old school traditional internship where
mm,
it becomes just a job shadow or something like that, which it's not. And I think, what Teamship does, well, I know that they bring in the students are working on real value. Now, companies can create, you know, scenarios that may not be real or whatever. But I got to tell you, and I'm talking to you organizations right now, don't do that. Like, obviously, don't give away any of your trade secrets or anything like that, but build like real challenges that you're having into these. This is where it's going to be amazing. And I think this is where that scale of this becoming a bigger bigger thing, teamship becoming not just in courses, maybe it becomes a course of its own. I love that idea
Hmm.
of it becoming a course of its own, but I think that is the biggest plus side to this. And man, and I'm glad that Alyssa brought that up and you brought that up as well. The students, when I was at a previous high school, so many of our students, like 60% were like, I'm going to business, and they've never took a business class. So we revamped our business courses to look like collegiate business courses. Um, and even like at the master's level, then they started to get it. And then they started to understand, and it took a few years, but they started to understand that because they had this experience just in a business class. We're not talking about a team-based challenge or something like Teamship or even an internship, but they were able to work with companies within the classroom. You could see more and more of our students in that school district getting into their top one, two, three schools because of that narrative. And now you add these next things. Now, I mean, it's so interesting. You know, like you said, the College Board is in a lot of ecosystems, right?
Hmm.
And again, like I think both of us are setting aside some of the negative things that have been said. There have been a lot of, I guess, challenges or arguments or people for or against College Board, traditional versus innovative. But man, if you go back and listen to Alyssa, I mean, there is innovation here. You can hear it in her passion to really bring just steer the ship into the right direction and really bring innovation and equity and all these opportunities to our students. Is it going to be perfect? And I think this is where traditional educators or the mindsets still kind of stick in there. I know I wrote a blog about this today when we were recording this about, AI. We've got to learn with our students. We've got to learn with our community. We can't be the owners of everything. And I think that mindset shift is happening as well in that ecosystem.
That's definitely shifting. And uh we talk to a lot of people. I mean, you've talked to even more people over the years, but we've been doing this now for 4 years together, and there are certain people when you meet them, you can just tell they're like movers and shakers. They see the bigger picture, but they also see like, okay, in order to make this happen, we got to get XYZ in place. And both Dan Gonzalez and Alyssa Chodnowski, as well as I'm sure there are other people at the College Board, but those are the people we know.
Mhm.
They for sure have that in them. And I mean, just shout out to them and the work that they're doing, because it's not easy work. And I think that's what's really the important one of the important discussions of like why this is really important now, and this because of the AI world that we are in. And I
Mhm.
love what Dan said, and you know, part of his urgency in making teamship available to more students is because he sees that like in high schoolers and young people have to understand what is their value
Yeah.
in an AI world. That question, I actually it's sitting in that question over the last couple days and thinking about that particular question is actually made me think of how heavy that question must feel to a young person who doesn't feel like they have a voice, like they have value.
Hmm.
I and like I'm trying to put myself back into like my high school self, and I felt like I had places of value because I was working. Um, I was also playing volleyball and very very competitively, and providing value in my community. I did a lot of community service. I was part of a youth group that we did mission trips and programs, and like I didn't I don't think I ever felt like I wasn't providing value in my community, in my home, in my school, and in my work. I can 100% see the weight of that question in ways that I think Dan really feels. And that's why like his work is so important because like the reality is, I mean, I just got news updates today of AI upending work. Like, and it's going to continue to upend work. Salesforce just recently cut like 1,000 jobs,
Hmm.
and their reasoning is that a lot of those jobs can be done by AI. Like, if you don't even have any quote unquote value to that you can show the world, then like, okay, well, how are you going to stand out in an AI driven world? Like, what is the human value? And I 100% think teamship drives and trains that. Because like there are just things that AI can't do, and I don't think AI will ever be able to do. Like AI, sure, like it can generate answers, and it can generate answers faster than any student, any human can do. Nobody's a computer. And I mean, like, right, it can write, it can calculate, it can code, it can analyze. Um, so then it's like, okay, so what is school? Right, we're coming up to this question of like, what is school actually for? Like, what is the purpose of it? Um, because human value like shifts in the world that we're like living in. So
Hmm.
it shifts to like meaning making and like judgment, collaboration, like things that teamship uh does, like working on a team. Because like AI can't like it can give you strategy, but it can't like make meaning. It can't feel emotion in a room. It can't like read the room. You know, it can't navigate like ambiguity with real people, real stakes. So like those durable skills,
Hmm.
they don't ever disappear when the software updates. And so that's like where I see this shift and signal from College Board of partnering with Teamship is like really, really important because it's saying that like, okay, yeah, the AI can take the tests and the AI
Hmm.
can give you the information, but it can't like drive meaning and ask questions and decide like what questions are worth answering even.
Hmm.
And so that's where I think like this idea of like education being about like mastery alone is no longer enough.
Yeah.
And um yeah, like just proving having skills in real context, like that matters more. And that's what we're seeing. And I just that's where I see the partnership and collaboration between the two organizations merging, so to speak, or teamship coming on board, College Board is is the biggest signal I have seen since starting on the podcast that like this disruption is happening in education.
Yeah. This episode of the Disrupt Education podcast is brought to you by UScience BrightPath, the next generation platform helping students make personalized decisions as they move from education to career.
If we truly want students prepared for life after high school, we can't rely on outdated, interest-only guidance to navigate a dynamic career future. UScience starts with aptitude discovery, helping students build a deeper understanding of who they are and how they're wired to succeed. From there, students create plans, develop in-demand skills, validate them through industry-recognized certifications, and connect directly with employers.
The result? Intentional pathways with real opportunity.
UScience is the only platform bringing all of this together at scale, which is why we at Disrupt Education Podcast are proud to partner with them.
Learn more at uscience.com/disrupteducation-podcast. Request a demo and let them know you heard about UScience right here. If you go back to the early podcasts that I did with students who were talking about school and what they would change and just giving their opinions, it's nice to hear that um, College Board is understanding that, right? Alyssa said it as well. Like the kids want relevance. They want to walk out of at the secondary level with some sort of skills. They want to understand how to do something, and they also want to understand their value. And again, I think, with all the data and the student feedback and such, I don't know why it took this long, but okay. But but it's here. And just going through my notes as I was going through, there's several words that are repeated on my notes. Clarity, what have you done? Like, what's the value, right? What have I
Mm,
done? It used to be, well, I got a 4.0 or I got this on my SAT or ACT or whatever. And what does that even mean? Like, social capital, like what is your social capital? And then how can we even that out? Because the people who knew people and had the accessibility at home are the ones that are usually going to do pretty well in school and the traditional system.
mhm,
The path, finding a path to their own future. Aptitudes came up as well. So, and getting students excited and to constantly showing their skills and understanding how to talk about their skills and to show what they've done. I mean, just keep going back to that.
mm,
It's interesting because I used to ask students, what did you do in that class? And they would be like, we learned about A, B, and C, and that's it. And I was like, how? How did you learn? And that's changing because I think we're getting into that the experiential learning and how important it is, and then tying it. I'm telling you, Allie, like with I can't wait to see what are the big companies that are going to start stepping into this and working with Teamship and College Board and the Career Kickstart and
mm,
really, this is what they're doing. Um, that part really excites me because I love to help. Obviously, I love to help anybody find and show their value, but I really love to help organizations find valuable pieces that are going to help them, um, not just move their products and services, but really kind of change the world and really to help bring the right people at the right time to their organizations as we evolve. And when I say evolve, that involves the AI and those different things. So, I mean, this is really, oh man, we're cutting into the relevance of school. Like what is this? Why are we here? Why are we learning this? And we've always asked that. I mean, I used to be a little devious and challenge kids to ask certain subjects, like ask your teacher why you're learning this and bring back, let me know what they say. Right. And I wasn't really putting the teacher on the spot because sometimes I don't even know what the educator understood. Right. And the practitioner, then maybe they just were like, I was told to get these test scores to this, and that's what I'm doing. Okay, fine. But these real problems, these real challenges, they flip that switch. So we're talking about the relevance. I'm going into the three R's of, the College Board, and then the reach, right? That scaling, school to school is always too slow. If you know me, I like to do things really fast, and I get very impatient. Although I've made it, 2026 is a year where I'm taking my breaths. I'm meditating in the morning now, by the way, Allie, and
hey,
yes, and I'm going through a lot of like, work on myself, and I don't even listen to the radio going to school anymore. But anyway, so that's kind of you calm down, you slow down to speed up. That was what Connor Bounty told me back in the day, who was on the podcast years ago.
mm,
But it changes the scaling, right? That's the reach is out there, and then the readiness. This is where the employers keep saying, here's what I want. I want somebody curious. I want somebody willing to learn and asking questions, right? And if you do that in a traditional system, you're not curious because the students were bored. They don't really learn how to learn. They learn how to regurgitate in a traditional system.
mhm.
And no one's asking questions because if you ask questions, you look dumb and it's not a safe space. So I think that's where these durable skills become really the true currency here. So, I've never, ever outside of education had an employer, and this goes back to it, ask me what my GPA was. Never, ever.
The only ones who seemingly care about it are high schools and colleges. And
Right.
I don't know how much colleges care about it other than
Mhm.
like it seems to be like oh like a minimum threshold, a screener is what I'm thinking of.
Right.
Right, you
Right.
in order to get past the admissions first step, we require this level of GPA.
I've
But
always
beyond
said
that,
though, yeah, I've always said there's a story behind it though. If you could tell the story, if you struggled to push yourself and get yourself to an A or whatever, to a 4.0 or whatever,
mhm.
that's different. We're not teaching kids that. Sorry, I just want to interject because that's right here. Tell the story. It's in my notes. So
It's so true though. Like I I remember, I mean, so again, I taught chemistry and I had many students who up until 10th or 11th grade, typically when chemistry is taught, were straight A students, never a course never really challenged them. They never got anything less than like maybe a B plus. And some students like only straight A's on even the tests, let alone like a lab or homework. And so chemistry sometimes for some of those students uh was a class where they got like their first C on a quiz or on a test. Like I'm not even talking about like
that's
an
me,
end
by the
of the
way.
semester
It's
grade.
absolutely me. It was
Okay.
chemistry, Allie.
Yes. And I my first year teaching, I guess I wasn't really prepared for the emotional turbulence behind some of the students and parents,
hmm
and how upset they were with me. How could I give their kid a
Right. You,
C or whatnot, right? Like I was unprepared
yeah.
for the reactions. I mean, like, yeah, in my year of my master's program when I was in a classroom, like I saw my cooperating teacher handle it with ease, but she prevented those conversations, which I didn't really see, right? Um, and those the I got better at telling students that like it's so much better if you are not a straight A student. It makes you so much more interesting. And like many of them, they definitely did not believe me in the moment.
hmm
But like later would come back and be like, yes, I learned more from failing, quote unquote. They didn't fail, but like in their
Right.
minds they did. Uh, and that like it was actually a very there was a lot of tension in sometimes in my class because of the angst students felt with failure and
hmm
like labeling themselves like I never put that on them. Like I always would tell my students like this test doesn't define you, this class doesn't define you, like a number on a piece of paper doesn't define you, a letter on a piece of paper doesn't define you. What's important is that you use this information to move yourself forward.
hmm
And
Yes.
like that, like I got better at delivering it, but it's like that should be the whole point of high school is that message. Right. And so,
Yes.
right, like, and now when I think of college board though, and for some students it wasn't chemistry that was that class that happened. Sometimes it was their first AP course.
hmm
And so AP teachers and students tend to gravitate towards those classes because traditionally they're very structured, they're organized, they're predictable. There's an exam at the end, you know exactly like where you sit on it. It's clean. It's a clean cut um, and straight narrow path, I would say, like
hmm
in the general sense of that. And teamship is a little bit wilder, a little bit like an overgrown garden. It's beautiful. It's not, immaculate. It's messy. It's the real world. Like you're gonna have to pull some weeds. You're the squirrels are gonna eat your zucchini plants, okay? Your strawberries. Like
I
it,
love that. That's a great analogy.
like I I actually think more school gardens would be really good like they do them in elementary school.
Hmm.
I don't not as much high school that I know of. They
Yeah,
are out
we're
there, I'm
lucky
sure.
enough to have plant science. We do have plant science. So we have greenhouses.
Gardening is such a real teacher of like real world failure, quote unquote. Like you're gonna get messy. You're gonna try stuff like, okay, I actually got to share. It's been a while since I've talked about my grandpa, who is still alive,
Hmm.
almost 96 years old, and he is a master gardener. He has been gardening since he was like 20. So we're talking 70 years. Every single year has had a garden,
Hmm.
and he loves tomatoes. And he like gets tomato plants from not only all over the United States, but he has breeds of tomatoes and seeds of tomatoes from like Russia,
Nice.
like Asia, like all over the world. In fact, one of his favorite tomato um, plants that he plants every year since he started it, which I don't know when that was, but many, many years ago, is a Paul Robeson, which is actually a type of tomato, I believe. I'm pretty sure it's either out of Russia or somewhere in like Eastern Europe.
Mm.
And it's a phenomenal tomato. I say this, but like he still after 70 years, okay, of gardening, quote unquote, loses tomato plants to something he couldn't predict,
Mm. Mm.
loses like zucchini or squash to like the conditions are different every single year, and he doesn't like, and but yet he gets tons of amazing tomatoes and squash and zucchini and cucumbers, and he doesn't like just throw in the towel and be like, oh well, I'm done gardening because I lost so many tomato plants. He doesn't like grade his garden like ABCD and then like, oh well, that's it folks. You know what he's doing right now actually is he's mapping out this year's garden. In fact, he's
Yeah.
already started seeds and like, he uses it as a learning experience. Uh, You whatever you said made me go off on all of this, but it's like it's the real world is messy and it's
Yes. Yeah.
not it's not a test.
Yeah.
And so I'm not saying that the AP model and a test is bad. Like I don't think that that is a way to show like that you have learned something like
Right.
but it's not the only way, and
Hmm.
that's where I think bringing teamship into college board, into AP classes, into high school at a much bigger scale is what we should be talking about, like that value and human value and what you can deliver and how you can work on a team and how you can solve real world problems. That's where education is moving.
Hmm.
You've been saying it for 10 years, and now other people are just like, yeah, I agree.
Yeah. No, you're, I love the tomato analogy, by the way. And like you should do a blog or like maybe like a vlog, a video vlog of that. That's cool. Like that's nice job, Grandpa. That's awesome.
I know. He's
That's
awesome.
pretty solid. So that's what I love about this is the curiosity keeps things going. Again, like the first thing that our students usually do, and even our educators and practitioners do, is we look at that one lost tomato plant. We're like, oh, but we have a whole garden over here, right? And I think
Yes.
like, the rigor shows up in the garden, right? Like we've learned things, we scaled things, and we put all these things together. But then like the value of that failure, of what happened, that'll be you may be ready for the next year, or maybe it's something now you've realized that he can do. I know we're still on the tomatoes. I love it. But that becomes dangerous in a good way, I think. I think that's something that really we need to be understanding of, okay, what does a 4 or 5 on an AP mean? Okay.
Yeah.
Does it mean that I got a 5? Great. That what does that mean? Right. And it kind of goes back to that, like, what is a good school? I don't know. Like, we've talked about that. What is a good score? What does it mean? So I think we're starting to dive into that. I do know, and I agree with you, this is disruptive. This is um it can create a bottleneck. There is that mindset, right? If you come into it and I'm just going to put this out there. Like if you're a CTE educator and you guys adopt this as a um, as teamship and you're working with it, it's not going to work. Okay, it's going to be messy because you're going to have to rethink or unlearn things
Mm.
from the your traditional mindset. So, number one, get your head straight. I'm just going to be straight. Like, get your head straight because in this work, um, you're going into the unknown. And that's awesome. You got to look at it that way. Otherwise, you're going to look at it, you're going to be like, oh, College Board's doing this and it's not going to work. And then you're going to make it not work. And that's shortchanging yourself, that's shortchanging your community, and most importantly, that's shortchanging the students and the learners. So that's why, when we start to look at this right away, people are going to say, well, we don't have a work-based learning coordinator. We are already overloaded, et cetera, and all these different things. And I'm going to go back to your wonderful skydiving mentor, um, Jen, right?
Jen Sharp.
Jen Sharp.
Mm.
Be lazy, right? Let the kids mess up. And really, what we're trying to figure out, and even in the conversations we had after that podcast yesterday with Dan and Alyssa, is assessment, right? Assessment will not be clear. It will not be clear. It will not be a clear A, B, C, D. There's a lot of reflection in this work. There's a lot of writing in this work. There's a lot of students understanding what they brought to the table and then trying to understand how to verbalize it, right? We have given them things to verbalize in traditional education over and over again. Here, say this, say it back to me. If you say it back to me correctly, I'm going to give you an A. If you say it back pretty correctly, I'm going to give you an 80% and B, right? But now we're saying, go do this, mess around with it, and tell me what happened. I cannot prompt you what to say. And that's a whole different level of learning. That's CTE, that's work-based learning. That's everything that Christy Valesky has talked about. That's when you now start to understand who you are. If you go through like U Science and understand your aptitudes and then your interests, you have to be yourself and tell your own narrative.
Mm.
That is what we're teaching students. And this, again, this isn't going to happen overnight. And I just turn this thing over. But this is why, like, I really, it only works when teachers buy in. And look, I don't work for College Board. They don't pay me anything, right? That I know of. But here's what I want you to understand, right? Love it or hate it, make it the best for your students because that's what you're there for. And best for
Mm.
your students is to let them try things, screw it up, and let either companies or the teamship model come back in and help them correct it. If you don't get it the first time, that is not on the teacher. That's not your fault. Okay. It's the learning process. I get really, really emotional about this because I cannot stand teachers who will not try new things. I'm sorry. I'm going to say it right to you. I cannot stand you. Okay. Get out of the business. Okay. Because go be an officer of the law or somebody who has to follow exact rules. Fine, but this is not your business anymore. Okay.
Mm.
But I'm telling you, it's so much easier to step aside and let your students learn and bring them in and learn with them. I've been in the business for 24 years, Allie, and I would not be here if I didn't learn with my students. If I didn't have some fun in the classroom, and I don't mean just playing games and not doing anything, I mean like experiment. Let's try this. What happens? And I'm doing that with AI now and all these different things. So, you know, we can't rely on one passionate person. Evidently, I'm a little passionate right now, but when it dies, right? So bring that culture, get into your groups of people and just go crazy creating. Be a
Mm.
kid again, right? Be a kid again, like in the playground or in the pile of mud or on your bikes or wherever you were. Be a kid again, and I think that's something that I'm excited about. um, it is a bottleneck, but I want people to know you've got to be open-minded and go for it because that's where this is going to make this whole thing work. And then, it's going to be, it really is great to work this way. I'm telling you, it's so much fun. So I'm off my
Your
soapbox now.
No, your years of teaching are your gardens, like they're your
Yeah.
tomato plants, and every year you're not like, oh, this year the experiments I tried and the techniques I tried were awful, and so I'm just done. You're
Yeah.
like you use that as I'm sure not every year was great, amazing, chef's kiss. I taught everything perfectly, and all my tomato plants grew to 6 feet tall. Like no, you just like you're like, okay, I'm gonna teach these classes again next year, but I'm gonna do them differently for X, Y, Z reasons, and you plant the seeds again, and
Hmm.
that's a totally different way to look at education, and that's where I think the teamship model coming into College Board is more like planting a garden than just like you know uh maybe paving sidewalks is a little more structured and orderly. You pretty much know what you're going to get there. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yes, there you go. I like that. Cement. Pave it,
some,
it doesn't move.
I'm
But
not
then you get
saying
walked
college board,
all over.
you don't move. I'm
There's
just
no
saying, like, it's
fruit
just
that comes up through the
a
sidewalks.
different approach.
That was actually a good analogy. I like that.
Oh, man. If you're on here for my analogies, sometimes they work and sometimes they really don't. And also, if you haven't picked up, sometimes I say words that are wrong and nobody says anything. And probably like later you listen to it and you're like, I don't think that's the word Allie meant there. You have to be listening pretty closely over the years to catch them. I catch them because I'm like, sometimes I'll be like, I use this word while I was podcasting, and my husband or my dad or a friend of mine will be like, that word was not.
I'm I know I do that. So forget about it. Like, yeah, I am like I'm Indiana core rural. So
Well, that's
here
how
I
you know we're
am.
not AI because you can't
Yeah,
you
AI can't
stop.
do that.
Yeah, that's like inadvertent.
Right, right. So, kind of rounding this out, I do like, I do want to touch on the equity, like we call it the equity gut punch, right? Like, so when these things happen and students have access, who already have access, are going to have access. But now we're bringing in companies that have access to students, who really may never have had that interaction with somebody in that professional capacity. So there's a lot of potential here. There's a lot of potential for students who probably felt like they, oh, I don't do well in traditional education, or, there's other hierarchy of needs that aren't being met, but still like in this, if you become a coach and a mentor as a practitioner, notice I didn't say teacher there at all, in these relationships and these teamship pieces. Now I think you're going to hear a lot more young people say, "Hey, you know what? My voice does matter. I did try this." Um, and I think that a lot of kids don't get to prove that value until after high school. A lot of kids go through high school and think, and I know I did, like the 20% that are just perfect for education, they're just here. I'm going to slide by. Doesn't really matter. But why? I mean, we need to not waste these 12 years and really give these kids some social capital and help them understand that they do matter. So I think that's big. But I wanted to kind of go into as we start looking at what's next here. Is this the turning point? I don't know. What do you think about that shift, Allie? Do you think this is the turning point? Do you think we are at the absolute chapter one of this?
Hmm.
I mean, at the recording, Dan was 34 days into this with College Board. What are some things that you're hoping to see, or that maybe you're predicting?
Yeah, so what I heard from Alyssa is just that, you know, we're we're not forcing like conceptual knowledge versus applied knowledge. We're integrating both. We're raising the bar on real world work. And this idea of the human value that also is like what Dan brought to the table. And I really loved Dan's contribution mindset. That's a different mindset a school culture could have. My hope
Mhm.
is actually that when I look at like school, it's like their phrases, their mottos, their whatnot, like what a cool way to approach education is like, how can I contribute? I think that's a good family model, right? Like I think family as a team and family, when you're all playing for the same team, so how can we all help and contribute, right? Like same with education, like the approach of like how can I make the world better, but like that seems really big, right? But you live in a local community and you live in a physical space, people around you. So, how can I contribute to the spaces, places, and people that I am around and involved with? And that approach to education, like I come back to Scott Carr's, like why are we here? What's our purpose? And a purpose could really be how am I contributing? And so I that shift um from school being like what's my grade, what did I get on this test, what's my AP score, to like what did you build, what did you solve, how did you contribute. That shift is my hope, that this is a huge signal for everybody in education that it can be right now, and the time is so right for it because it eliminates a lot of the fear that is out there because of AI, and it really localizes education in a contribution type model that it can erase like pretty much all the fears that would be out there because the problems are in community that you live in are unique, and they have their own set of challenges, and the people in it, like no AI can like predict any of that. So
Mhm.
that's that's what I would say.
I like it. Yeah, it's humanistic approach. And again, I do think, as AI becomes more and more prevalent, the human condition and the human experience is going to have more and more value, right? Yeah, there's still going to be VR and all these different things, but I really think the connection between humans and working together and those types of things, and that's kind of where I see the teamship model kind of evolving out of, really helping those different things. I'm excited for the next year to see what happens. I seriously can't believe that I'm actually saying I'm excited about what College Board is doing on a Disrupt Education podcast. 10 years ago, I would have been screaming and kicking and yelling about this. But as you start to see and you hear again the passion of Alyssa, the wherewithal with Dan and the 9 years he has put into this. This isn't just, hey, let's just try this. Like there's modeling here, and there's a lot of work that he did out of the Carolinas and so on and so forth. So um, I think we're going to see some good models. I think we're going to see some good narratives, and I certainly hope that they continue to tell their story. I also think that there's going to be things that go wrong. I think that there's going to be haters. There's always haters, waiters, and doers out there. And the haters are gonna, maybe try it and just do it lazily, and it's not gonna work because of several blockers and the mindsets and things like that. I think there's going to be waiters that are people are like going to be looking off to the side and waiting and saying, okay, well, let's see what happens. And I think the doers are just going to actually enhance and help the program while actually accelerating their students in learning their real what value do they bring, what have they done, and their skill sets and their durable skills and those types of things. Um, so I think right now one thing that schools really should do. is to really just number one, start connecting, right? Start connecting with people who have done this work, right? And it doesn't have to be teamship, right? Like it can be team-based challenges. Obviously, we've talked to a lot of people about this in our podcast, and we can list a mile long. But I think that's number one, and really reach out, right? Reach out to us, reach out to anybody that we've had on the podcast. People are willing to help, and we have people reach out to us all the time. I mean, it may be an email, it might be something. We'll just throw some things your way to just get. But also, I think there really is no okay. We got everything's perfectly ready. That doesn't exist. You just got to start, and it's like when you're in a class, right, and you're starting your class, you want to make sure everybody starts at the same time and everything, but it never really happens because a kid comes in late, one kid's got to go to the bathroom, a phone rings, something happens, whatever, right? But you still crush it. You still go through it and make some things happen. And that was a shout out to Robert Peppo, by the way, crushing it. But I want people to understand you just start, right? Start, get a group of people together who are passionate and have the right mindset and grow it out of that. Start small. So yeah, I think that's really cool. So this was the preface. We're watching chapter one start right in here, right? So I'm super excited about this. Are you, I mean, do you see this in like chemistry? Do you see this in the course later on or early on? I don't know. I wanted to ask you
I
that question.
I totally see this. It could fit in science. There's so like you just have to be willing to see it, right? And like the
Hmm.
teamship model is super accessible. If you aren't like totally clear on what that model is, like
Hmm.
go back and listen to episode, what is it, 358.
Yep.
Dan does a even deeper dive, and the model hasn't changed. It can be
Hmm.
like as simple as like 4 to 5 weeks within a unit class. It's the coaching model that and the training around teamship that's going to be the bigger shift from most people, most educators.
Hmm.
But it's so doable. Having in science, we do what's called inquiry-based labs, where you don't like give the answers. It's not formulaic. You have a problem, like, create the best water filter you can. These are you just provide them with a ton of materials, and they have to filter this nasty water and just try stuff over and over again.
Hmm.
And then there's water testing after, and so you can see like what you have and have not filtered out. Like, right, like in you're it's not like totally real world based problems, but just take it to that level. Like work with the local water filtration uh company, whatever is in your county, and to have them provide water samples, and then like
Hmm.
learn how to do it. Like it doesn't even have to be a quote unquote for profit company. There's organizations in a community that they have problems, and you got to start somewhere, so
Yeah.
let them solve it. So like science problems are, and chemistry is matter, and
Hmm.
matter's made up of atoms, and atoms are made up of everything. So yeah, you can totally apply this to any science class.
Yeah.
And and, and that's where I think like the biggest thing with this episode and with this kind of an announcement of College Board entering the CTE space and doing teamship, is more people need to know about it. And
Hmm.
so if you're listening to this episode, please share it with an AP teacher, a CTE teacher, share it with your chemistry teacher, share it with the administrator, share it with your local superintendent, share it with somebody that like they need to know this.
Hmm.
And that this is coming. It's possible, it's doable. There's lots of ways to do it. And because that's how real change, that's how you can disrupt education is like, yes, you can do it yourself, and you can also scale it, which is the urgency that we feel and why we have these conversations. so that it can reach more people rather than just talking with our own network and our own people. Anybody listening to this can share it, and it can reach networks and people that we can't even imagine, and it can have that impact.
Yeah, did you hear about this? Well, here's the podcast, right? This is it. You're exactly right. I do like that, sending it out to an AP teacher and one CTE teacher. You know what? Sit down together. What the heck? I think that would be a cool roundtable. Maybe we'll try to do something like that on the podcast. But like, you bring in and there's nothing wrong with tradition, right? There's nothing wrong, and we're not saying that. We're just going to be ready because there's going to be more. I'm really excited about it. If you have any comments about where your school is right now, I mean, where you at? Where you at with relevance, reach, and readiness? Is there a gap that you have? Go ahead and comment. Let's go. So. Again, want to thank Alyssa and Dan for last week's podcast. If you haven't, go back one. It's a huge podcast. It is the chapter 1 of College Board and Career Kickstart and the Teamship model with Dan Gonzalez. We're super excited to be part of the initial part. I'm going to guess there's going to be more. We've got a lot more coming up every week. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Share this thing out. Like Alli said, it's your challenge. Share it out to 2 teachers or 2 educators or 2 practitioners, 2 parents, 2 organizations. Keep going, 2 twos and twos. But we really appreciate you all being here and listening to us. We couldn't do this podcast without you. So for Alli Dahl, I'm Peter Hostrawser. Thank you for listening to the Disrupt Education Podcast. Thanks for tuning in to the Disrupt Education Podcast. If this episode sparked an idea, challenged your thinking, or helped you see education differently, well, that's exactly why we're here. We're highlighting real stories and bold ideas shaping the future of learning. A quick thank you to our sponsor, UScience BrightPath, the next generation platform helping students make personalized decisions as they move from education to career. If you're serious about connecting students to real opportunity, head to uscience.com/disrupteducation-podcast. Request a demo and let them know you heard about UScience right here on the Disrupt Education Podcast. For more episodes and clips and ways to connect, you can always visit disrupteducationpodcast.com. I'm Peter Hostrawser. Keep disrupting. We'll see you next time on the podcast.